It's new character time in Marvel's Avengers, so we're back with another showcase of the exotics and legendaries for the character. It is of course Kate Bishop we will be looking at today. Now she has 3 legendary sets, we'll run over all of them, and she's also got 3 exotic sets as well. One of the exotic sets was actually shown off in a stream, not quite sure where it will drop, not quite sure if it will be changed, but I figured we would show it off for a bit of fun. Now before we jump in and look over them all, if you're enjoying the content on the channel, take the time to hit the like, share and subscribe button. But let's jump in and let's check out these sets. Just before we look at the first set then, 2 things I will mention when it comes to the actual stats they can have on them. It is actually set for your legendary and exotic sets, so you can see them just below each of the items, so I won't actually discuss the stats at all because they won't change. And the second one being as well that some of these items of course, if you were to get a perfect legendary they would be better than them, but the problem with perfect legendaries is you can't actually focus farm them, or you can focus farm these items, and that's where I find they really do come in useful. If you're looking for a specific perk or a specific setup, then you know when you can actually go with a higher chance to get it. And at the moment for your legendary sets they're actually dropping 100% of the time. I'm not sure if that's a bug or not, but let's just run over them. Looking at the ranged and the melee, so that's the slot 1 and slot 2 here. It's the Agent's Edge and Agent's Glove. Really nothing interesting, they're both missing a third perk, so they may be bugged at the moment. They essentially just get variable effects, so it'll be different status effects based on different actual attacks as well. Looking at the slot 3, this is the Agent's Bodysuit. This one is Surge Protector. It's 10% damage reduction for all damage while Quantum Surge is active. You have Auto Blink, which is a % chance to automatically phase shift when taking damage, completely negating the attack. I've not put in a percentage because it's actually based on your stats, but I've seen ranges around about 11 to 15%, so it's actually pretty nice and it's a new mechanic, so I do like seeing that. We then have Overcharge Generator. It's 300% increased health and heroic energy while Quantum Surge is active. Don't actually know what this means because your health and your heroic energy don't increase by 300%. I'm not sure if it maybe means regen potentially. If anyone's played around with this and figured it out, do let me know. If it means regen, then it could be exceptionally powerful, this particular one, but let me know if you've tried it in the comments below. The last item we have here is the Agent's Charm. So it has Surge Enhancer. It's a 20% increased damage and impact while Quantum Surge is active. You then have Decoy Effector, 10% duration of decoy, increase the damage and effectiveness of the decoy. The decoy I find really underwhelming, to be honest, so even with the extra 10% I don't think I would recommend this piece. And then the third one is just a random perk there. So looking at this particular set, it does drop from the elite bosses I should mention, but looking at this set, the slot 3 could be very good, but there needs to be more testing done on how it actually works. I did try and test it myself and I just didn't see any difference with it, so again let me know if you've had any results in the comments below. The next set we have here drops from the Elite Vaults. There's actually some pretty interesting items here, and one of them actually looks to be bugged, and as a result of that bug it makes it one of the most powerful items in the game. But if we check it out, you've got the melee first, that's the Hawkette's Edge. So it has Quantum Effector, Quantum Teleportation, Intrinsic attacks deal status damage based on what type of melee status gear is equipped. So that'll be affected by the next perk you can see here, which is a variable effect. Now your Quantum Teleportation intrinsic attacks are when you hold down the right trigger and you can press light or heavy attack to cast them. You've then also got Quantum Overdrive Safeguard. It's 15% damage reduction when Quantum Overdrive is active. This can actually work really nice with the slot 3 that's bugged that we'll talk about in a moment. So this can be a nice piece for a melee setup. In regards to the next item here, it doesn't look that good, but it can actually be pretty good, and I'll explain why. So it's your ranged item. It's got 2 random perks. Now where the random perks are placed, one of them could be your damage buff on ranged crit, which is amazing for ranged builds. The middle effect is a variable one, so it's a random ranged attack, deals just random status damage as well. But the reason this can be pretty nice is that the stats will always be precision and proficiency, which is great for a ranged build. It would be really nice if I had resolve in there as well, but it means if you're farming for an item, for example for your range setup, then you know if you go in here you'll be getting the stats right at least, and then it's just the 2 perks, or in fact the 3 perks you need to get to go your way, rather than having to get the 3 perks and the stats as well. But looking at the slot 3 now, this is the one that's bugged and it's pretty insane, the bug. So it's Shroud Enhancer, Quantum Shroud reduces the reaction severity of enemy attacks and gains 20% bonus damage reduction. So you've also got the 15% damage reduction as well when you look at the slot 1, but you'll notice that so far this says Quantum Shroud, but in a moment I'll explain what happens with this item. Now the next perk is Blink Shroud. You gain Quantum Shroud for a brief duration after using Blink Dash, Blink or defeating enemies with any Quantum Teleport attack. So essentially if you use your dash button, then you will, or you should be gaining Quantum Shroud, but what you actually gain is Quantum Overdrive. That's the status you have when your ultimate is active. You gain it for 4 seconds, so once it runs out, you just dodge again and you get it back for a further 4 seconds. So what's actually happening here, when you look at this gear piece, when you use this alongside the slot 1, you'll be getting a 35% damage reduction because it will believe that Quantum Overdrive is actually active, which is really pretty amazing there. The random perk, that's just as it says on the tin, really occasionally we do get them. The third one generally will be a random perk when it comes to your legendary items. Looking at the final slot here, the slot 4, the Hawkette's Charm, you get Decoy Generator, 30% increased regen speed of Quantum Reactor energy while decoy is deployed, so that's decent. Shroud Effector, 30% increased damage absorbed by Quantum Shroud, and then you've got a random perk again. It's probably a decent enough piece, but Kate's actually got a particular slot 4 that we're going to look at next, and it's the most powerful item in the game by a wide margin, so any other slot 4 really doesn't come close to this. So that is the Elite Vault set. Let's check out the next one. We now have the Elite Hive set, so that's the 6 floor ones. Generally these sets are more powerful than the Vault and the Boss because they take longer and they're more interesting as well. Now looking at the melee slot 1, it's got Archer's Haste, 15% increased firing time of Razor and Disruptor arrows. You've then got a variable effect, so it's a random melee attack, deals status damage, and then you've got a random perk. So there is a lot of randomness on this, and the one perk you've got isn't that useful for a melee build, so I can't really recommend this. Looking at the slot 2, you've got Perfect Eye, quickly land 3 headshots in a row using Perfect Draw in order to activate Perfect Eye for 6 seconds. While active, make every ranged attack a crit hit. It's really powerful, but being able to land 3 perfect shots and 3 headshots in a row in quick succession, it's going to be really difficult to do. If you can do it on a controller, well done, but I think this is more a perk that will be better on PC with people using keyboard and mouse. The other perks we've got a variable effect, and then you've got a random perk as well there. Looking at the slot 3, it's the Archer's Bodysuit, so you have Perfect Pick. This one here, increase the window of time needed to land a perfect draw by 20%, so it ties in nice with the last piece if you're going to try and do that. Archer's Resolve, reduce the reaction of enemy attacks and gain 22.5% damage reduction while aiming. So with this one it'll make it easier to land those headshots. So as mentioned, piece 2 and 3 tie together pretty nice there. Looking at slot 4, most powerful item in the game by a wide margin. So this is called Disruptor Extension. It increases the duration of disruption effect on enemies by 3 seconds and reduce enemy defense by 30%. I've done multiple videos on this. The last video I've done, I broke down how this works, so I'll just say to keep it short that essentially you'll be doing an extra 130% damage when you apply the disruption debuff to enemies. So this piece is just absolutely amazing, and it applies to your teammates as well. They will also do 130% extra damage. Looking at the next perk, it's Warp Extensor, so gain an extra warp arrow charge, which is pretty amazing because it's an incredible skill. It's probably my favourite assault heroic in the game. And then you've got a random perk as well. Now what you'd be looking for there ideally if you're running a range build is your Berserker buff, where you get your damage buff on 16 hits in quick succession. You can get that very quickly with Scatter Shot. So that's the Elite Hive set. As mentioned, slot 2 and 3 are interesting because they tie together, but 4 you need to get it regardless of the build you run. We're now on to the exotic set. So this is the Elite Heroic Hive. That's the one with 14 floors. This set is very similar to the legendary set that drops from the Elite Vault, so I'll go over it nice and quickly here. So looking at the slot 1, you've got that Quantum Effector, so that was the one that when you do your teleportation attacks you get the status effect that's in the next line. You can see it's just a variable effect here. And then you have got a set perk for the third one, which we didn't have on the legendary set. Don't know the name of it, but it gives you 15% increased quantum energy When you look at the slot 3 we've already talked about in detail, this perk isn't really that useful, unfortunately, so you can go for the legendary or the exotic here. The exotic of course will have higher stats. Looking at the ranged one here, it's got Archer's Haste, so it's 15% increased firing time for Razor and Disruptor arrows. You've got a variable effect there, and then you've got Scatter Shot Effector. It's 20% increase in stun, status and all normal damage of Scatter Shot arrows. This is incredibly good, and if you can get that Berserker buff on the slot 4, the Agent's Charm that we talked about earlier on, then this would be absolutely perfect. So this is one you really want to keep an eye out for. Looking at the third slot here, it's the one we've actually discussed in a lot of detail. This is the one that should give you the Quantum Shroud when you actually use your dodge, but instead it's giving you your Quantum Overdrive, which is your ultimate instead. Third perk it has, again it's a set one, it's called Quantum Battery, which is 15% increase in maximum quantum intrinsic energy. Again, not that useful, so the legendary one would actually be better there. Looking at the slot 4, it's Decoy Generator, so that's the increased regen speed of Quantum Reactor while the decoy is deployed. You've got Shroud Effector, which is increased damage absorbed by Quantum Shroud. And then the last one we have here, we don't have the name of the perk, but it increases the duration of Quantum Overdrive by 4 seconds. But if you're actually using the slot 3 with the way it's bugged at the moment, you don't need the increased duration because you can get Quantum Overdrive for 4 seconds every time you dodge. I will mention that initially I was hoping that when you dodged, this slot 4 would increase it to 8 seconds, but it doesn't do that. Just to let you know, it'll still stay at 4 seconds. So looking at the items you want here, the slot 2 and slot 3 are actually really nice. We'll then have a look at the hardest set to get. This is a Mega Hive set. I believe it's currently bugged in game. When Kate first came out it was bugged. They fixed it with a patch, and then a subsequent patch actually broke it again, so just do be aware of that. But this particular set here, if you look at the melee slot 1, you've got a variable effect on perk 1 and 2. And then your third perk here, we don't have the name of it, but it's 15% increased stun, status and overall damage while Quantum Surge is active. It could be decent for a melee build, that one, but nothing incredibly special. Looking at the ranged one here, you've got your variable effect, so that could be on Scatter Shot, it could be on Explosive, or it could be on Razor Arrow, and there's actually 2 of them, so I had a chance to get the variable effect on the arrow you want. The third perk is Disappointing, so we don't have the name of it once again, but it's 20% increase in stun, status and all normal damage of explosive arrows. Explosive arrows are just really underwhelming. I'd much rather use Scatter Shot arrows, but if for some reason you're running an explosive arrow build and you want to seek out this item. Looking at the slot 3 here, you've got Surge Protector, 10% damage reduction for all damage while Quantum Surge is active. Auto Blink, we talked about that earlier on, and I really do like the idea of that. And then Overcharge Generator, once again we talked about it earlier, but we're not sure how it actually works, so if you got a better idea let me know. But what it says anyway is 300% increased health and heroic energy while Quantum Surge is active, whatever that actually means. Checking the stat sheet, your health doesn't go up by that much. Now looking at the slot 4 here, it's actually really nice, but it doesn't beat the item we talked about that gives you the extra 130% bonus damage. But what this does have is Surge Enhancer, 20% increased damage and impact while Quantum Surge is active. Decoy Effector, 10% duration of Decoy, increase the damage and effectiveness of Decoy. And then the third perk, which is nice, the name's unknown, but it's 20% increase in range damage during Quantum Overdrive. So overall it's actually a pretty nice piece when you look at the fact you could get your damage up by 40% there when you're using your ultimate, but it's just the fact you've got that other item we talked about, Disruptor Arrow, which is just a whole lot more powerful. So that's all the exotic sets that are in game. There was one that was leaked on stream by Phil when Phil and Andy were actually streaming. I don't know if it'll make it in game or what's going to happen with it, but we'll quickly show it off just for a bit of fun here. So this set is very similar to the Elite Legendary set. Now I'm not going to tell you which ones you would want to use because I've no idea if they will actually come to the game, but as mentioned Phil showed them off in a stream. So it's the Sharpshooters set. The slot 1 here is Archer's Haste, 15% increased firing time for Razor and Disruptor arrows. You then get a variable status effect on a melee attack, And then you've got Scatter Shot Effector, 20% increase in stun, status and damage of any perfect draw shot. The next one we have here, the ranged one, it's got Perfect Eye. I've actually run over that earlier on. It's quite a long tooltip, so I'll let you just read that out there. You then get a variable status effect, and then you got Disruptor Deconstructor, I like the name on that one. Enemies affected by Disruption Arrow take 30% more status, stun and crit damage. That could actually be really pretty amazing, to be honest, because Disruptor Arrow is pretty awesome as it is. Now, looking at the slot 3 here, it's the Sharpshooter's Bodysuit. It has Perfect Pick, again we've already talked about that particular one. You've got Archer's Resolve, once again we've seen that. And then it's got Blink Effector, I believe that's a new one. It increases the distance and reduces the cost of Blink Dash by 15%. And then the slot 4 here, Disruptor Extension, increase the duration of disruption effect on enemies by 3 seconds and reduce enemy defense by 30%. That's what we talked about earlier on. If you're running a range build, the exotic version, this really wouldn't make much difference because it's giving you proficiency and might, whereas you're really looking for your precision instead. It's got Warp Extensor, and rather than a random third perk, it has Perfect Reactor. Defeating an enemy with a perfect draw shot restores Quantum Reactor intrinsic energy, heroic energy and 5% health, which is pretty interesting. But we mentioned earlier on in the video, when you're looking for this particular charm, the one that's got Disruptor Extension on it, what you ideally want is your Berserker buff, where you'll get a damage buff when you actually get 16 hits in quick succession, because you'll proc that very quickly with your Scatter Shot Arrow. So that's all the pieces there. The slot 4 is really good, but the legendary version's better. The slot 2 actually looks pretty amazing, but no idea if this one will come to the game. Now, I've done videos like this for all the other heroes, so if you want to check them out, there's a playlist that contains them all. And if you enjoyed the video, take the time to hit the like, share and subscribe button. And thanks for tuning in, stay safe, and I'll see you all again soon.